of the factors influencing the effective implementation of the government strategy is giving a commitment to the strategy that has been implemented or wants to be implemented. This is because with the implementation of a long-term strategy, is it possible to identify the advantage and disadvantages of a strategy. And a long-term strategy that has been fully formed will not implemented in a few days. For example, consider how much the Malaysian government cares about the B14 group in this country. According to Bernama News released on November 11, 2022, that the government has allocated 99.7 billion in budget 2023 to cover the entire labor market ecosystem, including the labor supply, labor market, and labor demand, that showing the government's commitment to dealing with the labor market issue in the future. Next, the factor that influence the effective implementation of government strategies is clear understanding of the priorities. The opportunities that keep coming up frequently diverse management from its strategy. Opportunity-driven management is simple another way of saying that they lack of focus. So you can see that resources are always limited, that if they aren't used wisely, there could be worse casing after unimportant things. For example, we can see where Malaysia is experiencing inflation, which will cause the price of essential goods like wet food to rise. As a result, that the government has agreed to abolish the import permit immediately in order to reduce the price of goods such as sugar and rice. One of the strategies introduced by the government for administrative reform is to encourage the public sector to utilize computer in the management of the public sector. This strategy had been introduced and emphasized during the Mahathir administration. For example, previously in the Department of Road Transport or JPJ, the public have to go to the JPJ's office to pay for the Samat. But since the government had already emphasized the use of technology, the public now can pay the Saman through JPJ e-service, where they can check and pay the Saman online without having to settle it at the JPJ's office. Next, adoption of privatization is yet another plan of the government as part of the administrative reform. By privatization entails the transfer of tasks and responsibility that previously belonged to the government to the private. An effort to lessen the financial burden on the government, the Malaysian Prime Minister stated that the country will implement a privatization policy in line with the Malaysia Incorporated policy. For instance, that the most prominent companies that have been privatized are Telekom Malaysia Berhad, Tenaga Nasional Berhad. Last but not least, the strategy introduced by the government for administrative reform is to upgrade the leadership quality and the efficiency, effectiveness, and the productivity among the civil servant. With reform initiative of the Mahathir government were directed at all Malaysians in an effort to alter their perspective and persuade them to be forward-thinking. With that effort, which can lead us to the fact that during the Mahathir administration, he had given all level of government employees the chance to receive training. For example, Dr. Mahathir has introduced a number of ideas for the training of government officials, such as the Look of East policy, which is aimed to look the management method of Japan and Korea, as well as the domain the technical education, research development, and industry.
There are 5 types of power, namely position power, personal power, coercive power, reward power, and capability power. Positional power is when organization grant positional authority to you. However, they can also have the power to remove you from your position. Personal power is when you have the ability to influence or motivate people. You lose power by losing people confidence in you. Coercive power is when people obey orders because they were intimidated by punishment. And one lose power when terminated because they caught red-handed misusing their power. Reward power is when the leader give out rewards to other employees to encourage them to work. And they lose power when acting fraud to induce people to get involved for their own interests. The last one is the capability power, when someone is an expert in a particular field, which makes him gain follower. He loses power when he refuses to accept others' opinion, making him lose his follower.
I will point out 5 out of 7 general management tools as formulated by Luther Glick in 1937. The generic management tools by Luther Glick, which are organizing, staffing, budgeting, reporting, and directing, which was first coined in a paper on administrative management that was written for the Brown Law Committee by Luther Glick and Lyndall Irwin. POSCOP can be used as a systematic framework for efficiently executing business processes in a company or by an individual. POSCOP is one such method in management where workforce and employee can be managed in a way which would be beneficial for the company. This concept helps organizations to break down the work into multiple processes and help in getting maximum value out to each employee. This step and stage of POSCOP help the HR team to deliver to the needs of the company. The reason for the decentralization of management within a public organization is to create an efficient and reliable administration and to make decisions quickly. This is because the concept of decentralization is the exchange of decision-making and administrative authority from the central government to the organization at the local level. For example, in the context of public decision-making, this decentralization of power can be seen in the granting of power by the central government to the state government and local authority. This gives the local administrative level the opportunity to make their own decision according to the scope of the authority without having to rely on the central and state government. With this, subordinate authorities have the power to make law and rules as long as they don't conflict with those of their superior. This is because local authorities are taught to understand the hopes and needs of the local community better than those their superior. This is because having more than one superior means that decision can be made faster and better if the authority isn't given to the subordinate party.
Moving on towards question in chapter 4, which are the trends of NPM. Firstly, creating autonomous agencies would be the first NPM trend as it aids in decentralizing administration within public services. As a result, the leadership of bureaucrats is reduced and the government is better able to respond to public complaints and provide higher quality services. Next, another trend of NPM is the devolution of budgets and financial control. Budgets assist managers in creating financial controls by informing them when they must limit spending and when they have additional cash to spend on debt reduction or inventory expansion. For example, the Modified Budgeting System (MBS) was established under NPM in 1997 to address the budgeting flaws in the previous budgeting system, PPBS. Other than that, it is the development of automation. In 1997, the government introduced e-government to change the way the government works by making it more modern and improve the way it provides services. The effectiveness and quality of the public service is the final trend of NPM. The Malaysian government has adopted that the idea of privatization will boost the efficiency of the public sector. As an example, the construction of toll highways, ports and public transportations are done under the privatization initiative.
The first main source of the local government is from collecting local taxation. The taxes include license tax fees, rent and grant taxes collected from the public. Then, the taxes collected will be used for the purpose of developing the area, such as upgrading public facilities like building halls, landscaping, and ensuring that the area is clean and safe. The second main source of local government is from receiving the fund from the state and central government. The allocated fund will be based on the annual national budget announced by the ministry, and they will decide on how much money will be allocated to each of respective state. Then, the state will distribute it at the local government level. The national budget is a budget that the parliament will present and discusses the financial plan for the country every year. Firstly, the function is to ensure the distribution of federal funds is carried out according to national policies and objectives. Thus, from the announcements of the national budget, other members of parliament and also the public will be able to perform checks and balances and criticize the action of the government if they are not following the national policies or break the federal constitutions. Secondly is to ensure that allocations provided to ministry and departments are expended efficiently and effectively. For instance, every program conducted by the ministry must come up with a full report and proof of where the money is being used. And in order to know whether the program is effective or not, it will be evaluated based on people's feedback, its contribution to the community, and the outcome of the program that could benefit the public. Thirdly is to process and approve financial grants to the state government and local authority as provided for under the Federal Constitution and in accordance with the decision of the National Finance Council and Cabinet. The purpose of the grant is for the development of the countries, therefore it needs to be reviewed properly and needs to be given a professional opinion.
4 mechanisms to promote public accountability in Malaysia are the head of the state, YDPA, Parliament, Ministerial Responsibility, and Ombudsman system, or known as Public Complaint Bureau. Based on the Constitution, His Majesty the YDPA, apart from acting on advice of the government, His Majesty has power and other functions like the appointment of Prime Minister that can influence the actions of the government. Next, Parliament. In Malaysia, Parliament is the highest institution protected by the power of YDPA. Its main role is to make, amend, and repeal the law. Parliamentary members are given full freedom to debate and discuss issues in the interest of the people of the country. While the doctrine of ministerial responsibility is important because it is the backbone of the cabinet system as practiced in the parliamentary system, it has been observed as a constitution practice in the government based on the Westminster that ties the cooperation between parliamentary members so they can ensure that current government elected constituting the people's representative are responsible besides determining that every activity done at ministry and department level is being observed. Last but not least, Ombudsman, which it can be defined as a body instituted through the Constitution or the Parliament headed by a high-ranking public officer who is non-partisan that responsible to the Parliament, who accept complaints from anyone who has grievance against any agency, officer and employers or those who act independently to investigate and recommend solutions to improve the situation and produce reports.
Most civil servants are at ease with the conventional counter-service and oppose the transition to e-government services. Even if these views are shifting, it would take some time and effort for government personnel to abandon their old ways of thinking and adopt the usage of e-government services. Secondly, it is the lack of access. Not all regions of the nation have fundamental infrastructure needed for e-government, such as electricity and internet connectivity. In rural regions, almost 35% of the population still lacks access to reliable internet service, either due to inadequate coverage or because individuals just simply cannot afford it. Therefore, it needs to be addressed so that more users are able to access and use e-government services and have the opportunity, knowledge, and abilities to do so.